Ladies and gentlemen, I want to start today by asking you a question. What if the very steps you're taking, even in the midst of your confusion, are actually leading you to your greatest purpose? I get it, we've all had moments when we wondered if we were on the right path. Maybe it was when you thought you were supposed to be somewhere else or doing something else, and the frustration seemed to overwhelm you. Or when the plan you thought you had in your hands suddenly unraveled and you were left holding pieces, wondering where God was in all of it. But here's the truth: sometimes the mess we see, the uncertainties we experience, are actually the very means through which God is moving us closer to our destiny. Let me remind you today, God is ordering your steps, even when you can't see it. Purpose is bigger than you. You see, the moment you begin to understand that your purpose is not just about you, your success, your dreams, your achievements, but it's about what God wants to do through you for others, that's when things start to shift. The world needs your light, your gifts, and your unique story. But the path to purpose doesn't always come wrapped in a perfect package. It comes in layers of trust, growth, and sometimes challenges. That's where the process comes in. There will be moments when the road ahead feels unclear, and you'll wonder, why am I going through this? Why isn't it happening yet? Let me assure you, God is shaping you in ways you may not even realize. His ways are not our ways, and His thoughts are not our thoughts, but everything He allows, everything He does, is to prepare you for the greatness He has in store. Trust the timing of God. I know waiting can be one of the hardest things to do. We live in a world that loves instant gratification. But there's beauty in waiting. God's timing is never off. It's not a mistake that things are unfolding the way they are. Maybe you're waiting for the door to open, or maybe it feels like you're walking through one closed door after another. Let me tell you, your wait is not a denial. It's preparation. And when the right door opens, it will be the one that leads you straight to your purpose. But here's the thing, faith is the key. So many of us want to know all the details before we make a move. We want to have the plan laid out before we take the first step. But God is calling you to step out in faith, even when you don't see the entire staircase. It's the little steps of faith that build your trust in Him and show you that He's already gone before you, preparing the way. Let's talk about fear for a moment. Fear can paralyze us. It can make us feel small. It can tell us that we're not equipped, not good enough, or not capable of fulfilling the call God has on our lives. But fear is a liar. When God is ordering your steps, nothing is impossible. You are never alone in your journey. You may feel weak, you may feel unqualified, but His strength is made perfect in your weakness. So whatever fears are trying to stop you, let them go. Step beyond those limitations and trust that He will empower you every step of the way. And maybe you're thinking, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to trust fully. Friend, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is surrender. I know surrendering doesn't always feel easy. It feels like you're letting go of control, and that can be terrifying. But it's in those moments of surrender that God shows up the strongest. He says, let go and let me guide you. I've got you. So as you walk through this life, as you take each step, remember that God has ordered every step of the way. It may not always look the way you imagine, but I promise you this: when you let God lead, He will take you places you could never have gone on your own. Keep moving forward. Keep trusting. Keep stepping out in faith, and let God show you how He's been ordering your steps all along. Know that your purpose is waiting for you. Don't let fear, doubt, or impatience cause you to stop moving forward. God has a plan, and it's bigger than anything you could ever dream. So take one step today, trusting that He will guide the next and the next. And before you know it, you'll find yourself exactly where you were meant to be. Have you ever found yourself standing at the edge of uncertainty, looking at a path that feels unclear, unsure of where to step next? Maybe you're at a crossroads in life, feeling like you're stuck, waiting for something to change, or wondering if you're even on the right track. And yet deep down there's this whisper of voice, a knowing telling you to keep moving forward, even when the road ahead seems foggy, even when the world around you seems to be moving at a pace you can't keep up with. Let me tell you something, the journey to your purpose begins with one simple thing: trust. Trust that even in the midst of the unknown, God is already there walking with you. It's in those moments of doubt when you don't have all the answers that God is doing His deepest work in you. Trust doesn't always come easily, does it? Especially when the way forward feels uncertain, when everything you've planned for seems to be unraveling. But trust is the foundation of everything God wants to do in your life. I want you to picture something for a moment. Imagine you're walking through a dark room and all you have is a small candle in your hand. You can't see the whole room, you can only see what's in front of you. But you keep moving forward step by step because you trust that the light in your hand will guide you just enough to take the next step. That's how trust works in our lives with God. You may not be able to see the entire picture, but if you keep walking in faith, trusting that He's guiding you, you will make it to where He wants you to be. Trust is not about having all the answers or knowing how things will turn out. It's about having the faith to keep going, even when the outcome is unknown. It's about believing that the one who called you is faithful, that He's leading you to something greater than you could ever imagine. Trust is the confidence to know that even when things don't make sense, God is still at work behind the scenes, working all things together for your good. It's when you take that first step in trust that the journey truly begins. And let me tell you, the journey God is inviting you on is worth it. It's a journey of transformation, of growth, of discovering the purpose that's been inside you all along. So in this moment, I want you to ask yourself, will I trust Him with this step? Even when it's hard, even when I don't understand, will I trust Him to order my steps? Because once you decide to trust, you unlock the path to your destiny. The journey doesn't need to make sense right away. You just have to be willing to take that first step, knowing that God is right there with you every step of the way. There's something so powerful about understanding that your purpose is bigger than you. We live in a world that often teaches us to focus on ourselves, our dreams, our ambitions, our plans. And while there's nothing wrong with pursuing what's in your heart, there comes a moment when you realize that your purpose isn't just about you. It's not about how much you can achieve or how high you can climb. It's about the lives you touch, the people you impact, and the way you connect with something far greater than your individual journey. I want you to think about the difference between a goal and a purpose. A goal is something personal. It's about what you want to do, what you want to accomplish, what you want to see happen. But purpose is the reason you were created. It's the mark you were meant to leave on the world, and it doesn't always look the way you expect. In fact, it may not even fit into the neat, tidy boxes you've tried to put it in. Because your purpose is not confined to your plans. It's far more expansive. It's far more divine. When you begin to understand that your purpose is bigger than just your success or your dreams, you begin to see the world around you differently. You start realizing that it's not about your name being written in lights. So it's about using your life to shine a light in someone else's darkness. Your purpose isn't defined by how much you can gain. It's defined by how much you can give. It's about pouring into others, serving others, lifting others up as you go. This is why sometimes your journey feels hard. Sometimes the struggles, the setbacks, and the detours don't seem to make sense. But here's the thing, God is using every single experience to prepare you for something greater than you could have ever imagined. Your pain, your lessons, your victories, they all contribute to the bigger picture that God is painting through your life. It's not just about you. It's about what He's going to do through you. And here's the beauty of that realization: when you align your heart with this bigger purpose, you begin to see how your life has already been a piece of the puzzle that God is putting together. Your story is woven into a much larger narrative that transcends your personal desires. You are part of a divine plan that reaches far beyond your own timeline. So when you face challenges or when things don't go as planned, remember this: your purpose was never meant to be just about your personal success. It's about what you're contributing to the world, how you're making others feel seen and heard, how your life has the power to impact and change the lives of others. Your purpose is not just for you to find fulfillment. It's for you to pour out what God has placed inside you so that the world can be better, stronger, and more connected because of your obedience. Understanding that purpose is bigger than you changes everything. It frees you from the pressure of having to figure it all out yourself. It shifts your focus from worrying about what's next for you to trusting that God is working through you for a purpose far grander than you can fully grasp. And in that space of trust, you begin to see that your life is a thread in the fabric of a greater story. And that story, my friend, is one that will change the world. There's something incredibly powerful about the process. The journey from where you are to where you're meant to be is often not a straight line, and is certainly not always easy. There are moments when the path ahead is so unclear that you wonder if you're even on the right road. And yet, I want to remind you today that every step, even the detours and delays, is part of the process that is shaping you for something greater. You see, the unseen path is where growth happens. It's where you're refined. It's where you're tested, strengthened, and stretched in ways that would never be possible if everything were just handed to you on a silver platter. When you embrace the process, you learn to trust that even when you can't see what's ahead, God sees it all. He sees the big picture when you're only seeing a small fragment. He knows what's coming around the corner when all you can see is fog. And here's the truth: it's in those moments of uncertainty that your faith is built. It's easy to trust when everything is going well, when everything is falling into place and the path is clear. But it's when the road gets rocky, when the storm comes, and when the way forward feels uncertain that you discover what true trust really looks like. True trust says, even though I can't see, I believe you're with me. The process doesn't always make sense. There are times when it feels like you're walking in circles, chasing after something you can't quite catch. There are days when you question why you're still waiting or why things aren't happening as quickly as you expected. But let me tell you, that is part of God's plan. Sometimes the waiting isn't punishment, it's preparation. Sometimes the struggle isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that God is doing something in you that's going to make you ready for what's coming next. Think about it. Every seed must first be buried in the dark earth before it can break through the surface and grow into something beautiful. If it were left exposed, it would never grow. The same is true for you. The process might feel like you're buried under the weight of your circumstances, but know this: you are being prepared. What feels like darkness is the very thing that's nourishing your growth. The waiting, the testing, the refining, it's all part of God's perfect plan to bring you into a future you've yet to fully imagine. So I encourage you today to trust the unseen path. Trust that even when you don't have the full picture, God is at work. Trust that the process, no matter how difficult it may seem, is a vital part of the journey. And when you feel like you're stuck or lost, remember that God is still guiding you. Trusting the process means trusting God's timing. It means believing that the delays are not denials and that everything is happening in its perfect time. As you walk through this season, when it feels like the road is long and the end is nowhere in sight, remember that the unseen path is part of your transformation. It's in the process that you'll find the strength you didn't know you had, the wisdom you didn't know you needed, and the faith that will carry you through to your purpose. Keep moving forward, keep trusting, and keep believing that every step, no matter how small or uncertain, is taking you closer to what God has planned for you. There comes a moment in every journey when you have to decide if you're going to take that step of faith. It's that moment when everything inside you is screaming, what if I fail, or what if I'm not ready? But it's also that moment when you feel a pull in your spirit that tells you it's time to move. Stepping out in faith is not about having all the answers or seeing the full picture. It's about trusting the call, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it feels like you're stepping into the unknown. It's the courage to believe that the one who called you will equip you for everything you need along the way. Faith doesn't always come easy. It's not always comfortable. In fact, it's often the hardest thing you'll ever do. But it's also the most rewarding, because faith isn't about waiting until you feel ready. It's about responding to the call even when you feel unsure, even when it seems risky, even when the odds don't look like they're in your favor. It's trusting that God is already in your tomorrow, already preparing the way before you take the first step. It's saying, I don't have all the details, but I know enough to know that God is faithful, and He wouldn't call me to this if He wasn't going to show up. I know what it feels like to stand on the edge, staring at a future that feels unclear and a call that feels bigger than anything you've ever done. But let me tell you something, that feeling you have deep inside of you, that tug you, that towering, that stirring, that's God's voice calling you forward. It's easy to think that you need to be in the perfect place at the perfect time with all the qualifications and all the experience before you can step out. But God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He doesn't wait for you to feel like you have it all together. He calls you right where you are with everything you are, and then He equips you along the way. Stepping out in faith means saying yes to something greater than your fears, greater than your doubts. It means surrendering the need for control and trusting that even in your uncertainties, God is at work. It's the kind of courage that says, I'm not sure how it will all unfold, but I know who's holding my hand. And when you take that first step, you may not feel like you've got it all together, but something shifts inside you. You realize that faith isn't just a feeling, it's an action. It's the decision to move forward when everything in you wants to stand still. But that first step is just the beginning. As you walk in faith, you will find strength you didn't know you had. You will see doors open that you never expected. You will discover new abilities, new relationships, and new opportunities, all because you had the courage to step out of your comfort zone and follow the call. Every step you take in faith is a step closer to your destiny, even if it doesn't look like what you imagined. The truth is, faith doesn't always look like success in the world's eyes, but in God's eyes, it's the willingness to say yes, even when you don't have all the answers. So as you stand at the edge of the unknown, remember this: the courage to follow the call doesn't come from your own strength. It comes from trusting the one who is already ahead of you, preparing the way. Trust that He's already gone before you, that He's with you every step of the way, and that He will never leave you or forsake you. When you step out in faith, you're stepping into the incredible journey that God has set before you. And let me tell, fear is a powerful force. It has a way of creeping into our minds, whispering doubts and planting seeds of insecurity. It tells us we're not enough, that we don't have what it takes, that we should just play it safe and stay within the limits we know. But let me remind you today, fear is not the voice of truth. Fear is the thief of progress, and if you allow it to, it will keep you from stepping into the fullness of who you were meant to be. The truth is, you are capable of so much more than fear wants you to believe. You are stronger, braver, and more equipped than you think. The moment you choose to rise above fear is the moment you step beyond the limitations it tries to place on you. Every dream, every purpose, every calling that God has placed on your life will require you to face fear. And that's okay. Fear doesn't mean you're weak. Fear means you're human. But what you do with that fear, that's where the power lies. Fear will tell you to stay small. It will whisper, what if you fail? What if you don't measure up? What if things don't go as planned? But faith speaks louder than fear. Faith says, I might not have all the answers, but I know that I was called for something greater. I know that God is with me, and that's enough. There will be times when you'll feel paralyzed by fear. There will be moments when it feels like your heart is racing, your hands are shaking, and your mind is flooded with what ifs. But I want you to understand something. Those moments are not meant to stop you. They are meant to push you forward. When you're standing at the edge of something new, something uncertain, something that scares you, you are standing at the threshold of growth. Every time you choose to move past that fear, you are stepping into a new version of yourself. You are breaking down the walls that have held you back for too long. The truth is, fear doesn't disappear. It doesn't vanish just because you step out in faith. But what happens is this: with every step you take, you learn that fear is not your master. You become stronger. You become braver. And eventually you realize that fear is not a barrier, it's an invitation. It's the invitation to trust, to push through, to go farther than you've ever gone before. Every step you take beyond the limitations fear tries to impose is a victory. Every moment you choose to believe in yourself, despite the fear, is a moment of freedom. It's easy to let fear define us, to believe the lies it tells us, to stay within our comfort zones because that feels safer. But the truth is, comfort never leads to growth. It's the discomfort, the challenges, the risk, those are the spaces where you will find your true strength. When you face fear, you will realize that it cannot define you unless you let it. The only thing standing between you and the person you were meant to become is the courage to step beyond the fear, to trust that God has already gone before you and that His power is greater than any fear that tries to hold you back. You are not meant to live in fear. You are meant to rise above it. Every time you step beyond your limitations, you become the person you were always destined to be. So take that step, even if your knees are shaking. Move forward, even if your heart is pounding in your chest. Keep going, because on the other side of fear is freedom, and on the other side of those limitations is a life beyond your wildest dreams. Fear is one of the greatest obstacles we face in life, and it's a feeling we all know too well. It has a way of sneaking into our minds, planting seeds of doubt, and whispering the lies that we're not capable, not good enough, or that we're just not ready. It makes the impossible seem more real than the possible. It makes the unknown feel like a threat. And when we're standing on the edge of something new, something challenging, something that feels bigger than us, fear can hold us back from stepping into the greatness we were made for. But here's the truth: fear is not our final destination. It's just the starting point of our breakthrough. You see, fear is an invitation. It's an invitation to go deeper, to dig within yourself and discover what you're really made of. It's an invitation to break through the boundaries that have held you back for too long and step into the full expression of who you were meant to be. Fear might show up every time you try something new, every time you're about to take a risk. But what you need to understand is that fear does not define you. It's just a feeling, not a fact. And the more you choose to step forward in spite of it, the more you will see that fear's grip on your life starts to loosen. When fear comes knocking, it tries to convince you to stay small, to stay in your comfort zone, to avoid the discomfort of growth. It tells you that failure is inevitable, that you'll never make it, that the journey is too hard. But let me remind you of something. Your purpose is never found in your comfort zone. The call on your life will never ask you to stay safe, to play it small, to avoid taking risks. It will ask. So as you stand at the crossroads of fear and faith, remember that you are capable of so much more than you think. You have everything inside of you to overcome whatever stands in your way. The journey ahead may not be easy, but it will be worth it. So take that step no matter how small it feels. Keep walking in faith, knowing that every step forward is one step closer to the life you were called to live. Don't let fear define you. Let it refine you. And step boldly into all that God has destined for you.